Greg, I wanted to ask you about first of all IDFA, and it's coming into focus, but a lot of people aren't aware of it. Tell us sort of about the awareness level, and for the people who are aware or sort of have gone into it, what are their attitudes? How do they see it impacting business?
Yeah, okay. So, Andy, we've done this survey amongst our marketer members to try to understand the reflections in IDFA. And basically what we found is that, probably what you might suspect, a third of marketers say they understand it, they have good familiarity. A third say they sort of get it, which I think is probably those hedging or faking it in case we're reporting to their bosses or something, I guess, I don't know. And then a third said they really don't have any idea what's going on. I will say, though, what we did find is that a little over half, about 55% of marketers said that they do really expect this to affect their capabilities. And in particular, if you looked at those who said they have high familiarity with IDFA, then you're looking at almost 80% of them said they think it's going to have really negative impact. So those who know are most concerned.
So tell us about how they're going to be shifting their investment and their strategy. I know you had some results about probabilistic. We've been speaking to people about contextual. Where does the strategy go?
Yeah, so that's a really good question about sort of where they're going to go. So if you look at a layer of the data, and I don't think I sent you all of the actual charts, and we'll be releasing this here pretty soon. But basically, we found is just a significant amount of confusion in the marketplace. And specifically, I think if you look at a layer below the data, what they're saying is that they don't really fully understand what probabilistic might mean to them. And there's this interest in it, but then if you look, 70% of people say they are only somewhat familiar with it. And so when you say, this is what I'm going to do, but I don't really have a good sense of what it is, it means they're kind of grasping at straws. And I think that's really what's happening here. They're struggling to try to know what to do next, and they know that's their only backup, although it might not be an option that they're familiar with or its issues around it.
So does this sort of benefit the walled gardens, in your opinion? This sort of shift
Well,
to
I'll tell you I don't know about the shift to probabilistic versus deterministic kind of dynamics, if that's going to do that. It's interesting, Andy, we're actually, I'll put a little shout out to your readership if you want a listenership, viewership, if you want. I have a median data board that's run by Lou Pascalis now at Bank of America, is chaired by Lou Pascalis. And we've asked, one of the big questions we'd like to see answered is, what are the economic relationships? What's the return on investment dynamics of probabilistic versus deterministic? We've not yet come up with a research methodology, but if any of your viewers have a methodology, I've got a whole group of marketers who would be very interested in doing research against that. I don't think that we really actually know the underlying dynamics. I mean, sure, in some regards, probabilistic is a little bit going back in time versus where we've now evolved to with deterministic, but I don't know if we understand that that's a real negative or what the degree or lessening of ROI is around it.
Now, there's a whole industry around attribution. How is that changing, do you think? Sort of the solution offered by mobile attribution when this IDFA thing happens?
Yeah, well, listen, I think Andy, the MMA is a big backer of multi-touch attribution and attribution solutions. I don't even know if you're aware, but I'm not the father of MTA. Rex Briggs is the father of it, but I financed Rex in doing all that research that he figured it out back in the early 2000s. So we're huge supporters. I am personally, and so has the MMA been. Listen, I think there's going to be a big effect against attribution, the ability not to be able to look at across site. I think what's interesting, though, is that, we've had channels get negative in the past. And so at the end of the day, is that the worst thing that can happen to a marketer? No, my guess is they're going to start shifting funding away from iOS. They're going to move to more Android if they open that up, assuming Google doesn't make the same change, which is at risk. Or they're going to move to connected TV. As TV, it's a big opportunity for TV. I mean, if I was a TV guy, I would be all over this. And the nice thing about the TV sector is that it tends to be controlled by people who respect advertising, not like Apple, who really doesn't care about advertising as a business.
Okay, since you brought up Apple, let's talk about Apple and sort of Your thoughts about what's behind the IDFA privacy, their own interest, and perhaps the emergence of the SKAD networks?
Listen, Andy, I hate to be overly cynical about Apple's role in this thing, but my suspicion at some level, this is an opportunity for Silicon boys to fight against each other and Apple to try to take a shot at Zuckerberg and Facebook, quite honestly. Uh, it can't be in their interest to lower the economic value for developers by taking away this opportunity. So my guess is they're just using it as political leverage in order to both make themselves look good, to bolster their business, and probably appeal to some number of consumers who maybe really care. But we know from research that most consumers don't necessarily care about privacy, or not so much that they'll take to change in action. So I don't know, I'm a little cynical about Apple's move on this. And the App Store is a $50 billion revenue business for them annually, and they're putting that $50 billion at risk. And remember, that's $50 billion of probably very high margin revenue versus the 130 billion in iPhone sales, which has an extreme amount of cost and distribution cost, parts cost and distribution cost to it. So I don't know, it feels like a risky move for Apple to be making, in my opinion.